Ted Bundy, a name synonymous with terror and mystery, perhaps claimed the lives of over 100 women during his dark reign of terror. But only Bundy himself knew the true extent of his atrocities, a chilling secret he carried with him to the grave. One of his victims, Linda Ann Healy, shone brightly in her own right. A 21-year-old with a vibrant personality. Her voice resonated over morning radio waves, cheerfully updating listeners on ski conditions across western Washington. Tall, slim, and blessed with shining brown hair and an infectious smile, Linda was the epitome of youthful promise. Hailing from a respectable family in an upper-middle-class environment, she excelled in singing and was on the cusp of completing her psychology degree at the esteemed University of Washington. Her compassion extended to working with mentally handicapped children, a testament to her kind heart. On the fateful night of January 31, 1974, after a casual outing with friends at Dante's, a popular student haunt, Linda returned home. Little did she know, it would be her last night alive. Despite the routine sound of her morning alarm, Linda failed to emerge from her room the next day. Concern grew as Linda missed her commitments, prompting frantic calls from worried loved ones. But Linda was nowhere to be found. Investigations revealed a scene of eerie precision and disturbing signs of intrusion. Linda's bed, meticulously made in a manner unfamiliar to her, concealed traces of her blood. Oddly, a pillowcase and top sheet were conspicuously absent. Her nightgown, stained with blood matching her type, hung neatly in the closet. Clues pointed to a calculated abduction, as if the perpetrator had meticulously orchestrated the scene to erase any trace of their presence. Theodore Robert Cowell, later known as Ted Bundy, emerged into this world on November 24, 1946, a child of secrecy and deception. Born to Louise Cowell, he spent his early years under the guise of familial normalcy, unaware of his true parentage. Raised under the belief that his grandparents were his parents and his mother his sister, Ted's early life was shrouded in a web of lies crafted to shield his family from societal judgment. At the tender age of 4, Ted and his mother embarked on a journey to Tacoma, Washington, where they sought refuge with relatives, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions and hidden truths. A year following their relocation, Louise found love in the arms of a military cook named Johnny Culpepper Bundy. In May 1951, the couple exchanged vows, and Ted, then a young boy of 5, adopted his stepfather's surname, a label that would define him for the remainder of his days. As the Bundy family expanded with the addition of 4 siblings, Ted found himself thrust into the role of caregiver, spending countless hours babysitting his younger kin after school. Despite Johnny's earnest attempts to forge a paternal connection through shared activities like camping trips, Ted remained aloof and emotionally distant from his stepfather. Accounts from Stephen Michaud and Hugh Ainsworth's seminal work, Ted Bundy, Conversations with a Killer, reveal Ted's growing discomfort in Johnny's presence, preferring solitude over forced companionship. This penchant for isolation deepened over time, possibly laying the groundwork for his later struggles with social interaction. In his youth, Ted grappled with shyness, self-doubt, and an acute discomfort in social settings. Junior high was marked by teasing and bullying, experiences that, despite their humiliation, failed to dampen his academic prowess, maintaining an impressive grade point average throughout. High school saw a transformation in Ted's demeanor, as he emerged as a more outgoing and socially adept young man. Despite newfound popularity, romantic entanglements remained sparse, with Ted channeling his energies into extracurricular pursuits such as skiing and a burgeoning interest in politics. Post-graduation, Ted pursued higher education at the University of Puget Sound and the University of Washington, financing his studies through various menial jobs. However, a pattern of unreliability plagued his employment history, contrasting sharply with his steadfast commitment to academics. The spring of 1967 ushered in a pivotal moment in Ted's life, a transformative relationship with a woman who embodied his ideals of sophistication and beauty. Their shared passion for skiing kindled a romance that, for Ted, marked his first foray into love and intimacy. Yet, despite his ardor, the relationship was fraught with disparities in social status and ambition. Ted's attempts to impress his paramour, including embellishments and deceit, ultimately failed to secure her lasting affection. The culmination of their relationship in 1968 dealt Ted a devastating blow, plunging him into a spiral of despondency and disillusionment. Despite attempts to salvage their connection through correspondence, Ted's infatuation lingered, morphing into an obsession that would shadow him for years to come. Compounding his emotional turmoil, 1969 unraveled a startling revelation. Ted's sister was, in fact, his biological mother, and the parents he knew were his grandparents. This seismic discovery shattered Ted's sense of identity, further fueling his inner turmoil and setting the stage for the dark chapters that lay ahead. The revelation of his true parentage shook Ted Bundy to his core, leaving a bitter imprint on his psyche. While his relationship with his mother remained relatively unchanged, resentment simmered towards his stepfather, Johnny Bundy, as Ted's demeanor grew increasingly acerbic. It's uncertain whether this newfound knowledge exacerbated Ted's existing character flaws, which were beginning to manifest in troubling ways. Returning to the University of Washington to pursue psychology, Bundy found solace in academic success, earning accolades as an honor student admired by his professors. It was during this period that he crossed paths with Elizabeth Kendall, a pseudonym for the woman who chronicled her life with Ted in The Phantom Prince, My Life with Ted Bundy. Elizabeth, a reserved divorcee, envisioned Ted as a paternal figure for her daughter, harboring dreams of marriage despite Ted's hesitance to commit fully. Unbeknownst to Elizabeth, Ted's past dalliances lingered, particularly his ongoing connection with a former girlfriend from California. Despite outward signs of progress, applications to law schools, involvement in politics, and commendations from the Seattle police, Ted's dual life unraveled during a 1973 rendezvous with his ex-girlfriend. The reunion ignited old flames, yet Ted's sudden withdrawal left her bewildered and abandoned. As Ted's personal life teetered on tumult, a series of disappearances cast a sinister shadow over the community. White, slender, and wearing slacks, the missing women shared eerie similarities, vanishing into thin air on fateful evenings. Reports of a peculiar man with a cast seeking assistance from young women circulated, adding a chilling dimension to the unfolding mystery. In the midst of campus whispers and unanswered questions, the specter of danger loomed large, foreshadowing the darkness that lay ahead. Intriguingly, reports surfaced of a man with a cast seen near the vicinity where two of the missing girls vanished. Then, in August 1974, a grim discovery unfolded at Washington's Lake Sammamish State Park. The remains of some of the missing girls were uncovered, with two ultimately identified. Remarkably, amidst scant remains, hair strands of various hues, fragmented bones, the bodies of Janice Ott and Denise Naslund, who vanished on July 14th, were identified. The last sighting of Ott, recounted by a nearby couple, involved a charming young man named Ted, ostensibly struggling with his boat due to his arm cast. Ott, displaying kindness, offered her aid, sealing her fate as the last known encounter before her disappearance. Denise Naslund, spending time with her boyfriend and friends, embarked towards the park's restroom, never to return. A man, resembling the one with the cast, sought assistance from nearby women. While they couldn't aid him, Naslund, known for her altruism, likely extended help, a decision that proved fatal. Naslund's tragic fate marked another casualty in the growing list of disappearances and deaths. In October 1974, Bundy's acceptance to the University of Utah Law School precipitated his move to Salt Lake City. Tragically, the local police chief, Lewis Smith, experienced his worst nightmare when his daughter Melissa vanished, only to be discovered 9 days later, a victim of heinous assault. Days later, another teenager, Laura Amy, met a similarly gruesome demise. Suspicions mounted as the methodical brutality bore resemblance to the Washington state murders, prompting collaborative efforts between Utah and Washington investigators. Eyewitness accounts of a man with a cast, dubbed Ted, provided crucial leads, culminating in a breakthrough on November 8, 1974. That fateful evening, a mysterious yet charming man approached 18-year-old Carol DeRange in a Utah mall. Claiming to have spotted an attempted break-in, he escorted her to her car, evoking a sense of authority. But as suspicion grew, Carol demanded identification, unraveling the facade and hinting at the sinister truth lurking behind the charming veneer. As Carol deranged found herself ensnared in a nightmare, the assailant's swift deception shattered her sense of safety. Brandishing a gold badge, he coerced her into his car under the guise of law enforcement. Yet, the supposed officer's intentions veered into darkness as he veered away from the police station. Panic engulfed Derange as handcuffs threatened to bind her, and a chilling ultimatum hung in the air: comply or face death. In a desperate struggle for survival, she fought back, unleashing a barrage of kicks and screams. As terror loomed, she seized a moment of opportunity, fleeing towards passing motorists who provided a lifeline amidst the chaos. With Derange's harrowing account, law enforcement raced against time to apprehend the elusive predator. Yet, the trail grew cold, leaving only echoes of terror in his wake. Days later, a crucial clue emerged: a blood type matching Ted Bundy's discovered amidst the turmoil. As authorities pieced together the puzzle, another encounter sent shivers down spines. A mysterious figure lurking in the shadows, his intentions veiled in unsettling ambiguity. Meanwhile, tragedy struck again as Debbie Kent vanished into the night, leaving an empty void in her wake. A chilling discovery: a small handcuff key linked her disappearance to the earlier ordeal, cementing the perpetrator's nefarious signature. Witnesses recalled a speeding VW bug fleeing the scene, further entwining Bundy in a web of suspicion. Amidst the unfolding chaos, Karen Campbell's peaceful getaway morphed into a nightmare. Lost in the silence of the night, her absence cast a pall of uncertainty. Weeks later, her ravaged remains were discovered, the brutal aftermath obscuring the truth of her demise. As investigations grappled with the grim reality, the specter of Bundy loomed large, casting a shadow over the lives he had shattered. The discovery of Karen Campbell's battered remains bore the hallmarks of Bundy's depravity: crushing fractures, indicative of repeated blows to the head, and signs of sexual assault. As Richard Larson's chilling account reveals, the violence inflicted upon her was so severe that even her dental anatomy bore witness to the brutality. Within hours of her disappearance, Karen's life was brutally extinguished, leaving behind scant evidence at the scene. Months later, the Taylor Mountains yielded further grim discoveries: Brenda Ball and Susan Rancourt, victims of Bundy's insatiable violence, bludgeoned to death with blunt force. Their fates sealed amidst the desolate landscape, adding to the growing tally of lives claimed by the madman. The horror transcended state lines as Colorado became a grim tableau for Bundy's carnage. 5 more women met their untimely demise under eerily similar circumstances, underscoring the relentless nature of his killing spree. In a twist of fate, Sergeant Bob Hayward's vigilant patrol led to a pivotal moment in the pursuit of justice. Spotting a suspicious tan VW bug, Hayward initiated a pursuit, culminating in Bundy's apprehension. The trove of incriminating evidence found in Bundy's possession: crowbar, ski mask, rope, handcuffs, shattered any pretense of innocence, cementing his status as a suspect in a string of crimes. As the pieces of the puzzle fell into place, connections between Bundy and the assault on Carol Derange emerged, bolstering suspicions of his involvement in the abductions of Melissa Smith, Laura Amy, and Debbie Kent. A lineup identification further solidified the case against Bundy, as Carol, along with eyewitnesses, pointed to him as the perpetrator of their harrowing ordeals. Yet, amidst the mounting evidence, authorities braced themselves for the arduous task of securing a conviction, knowing that Bundy's twisted charisma could cast doubt on their pursuit of justice. Despite Ted Bundy's vehement protests of innocence, law enforcement remained convinced of his culpability. Following his identification in the lineup, investigators intensified their scrutiny of Theodore Robert Bundy, recognizing Elizabeth Kendall as a potential key to unlocking Bundy's secrets. In a pivotal interview on September 16, 1975, Elizabeth Kendall provided crucial insights into Bundy's behavior and activities. She recounted his nocturnal habits, his declining interest in sex, and his penchant for bondage, which she eventually refused to indulge. Intriguingly, she remembered Bundy's peculiar activities, including plastering Paris in his room and possessing a hatchet in his car. However, it was her recollection of Bundy's visit to Lake Sammamish Park in July, just before the disappearance of Janice Odd and Denise Naslund, that stirred investigators' suspicions. As investigators delved deeper, Bundy's double life unfurled. His abrupt shift in demeanor towards his California girlfriend, juxtaposed with his relationship with Elizabeth, revealed a pattern of deception and betrayal. Moreover, corroborative evidence emerged, linking Bundy to Linda Ann Healy through a cousin and placing him at Lake Sammamish Park during the disappearances. Witness accounts of pantyhose in his car and his frequent visits to the Taylor Mountains further compounded the mounting evidence against him. The trial for the kidnapping of Carol Deeranch commenced on February 23, 1976, with Bundy exuding confidence in his perceived lack of incriminating evidence. However, Deeranch's emotional testimony, coupled with Bundy's lack of alibi and inconsistent statements, cast doubt on his claims of innocence. As Deeranch tearfully identified Bundy as her attacker, the courtroom bore witness to a chilling moment of truth. Following deliberation, the judge delivered a verdict that would forever alter Bundy's fate, marking a pivotal chapter in the pursuit of justice. 2 days after his trial began, Bundy was found guilty of aggravated kidnapping beyond a reasonable doubt. He was sentenced on June 30th to 1 to 15 years in prison with the possibility of parole. While incarcerated at Utah State Prison, investigators intensified their efforts to tie him to the murders of Karen Campbell and Melissa Smith. Forensic analysis of hairs found in Bundy's VW revealed similarities to those of Campbell and Smith. Furthermore, impressions on Campbell's skull matched a crowbar found in Bundy's car a year earlier. Consequently, Colorado police charged Bundy with the murder of Karen Campbell on October 22, 1976. In April 1977, he was transferred to Garfield County Jail in Colorado to await trial. Discontent with his legal representation, Bundy dismissed his lawyer and chose to represent himself, confident in his legal acumen. He immersed himself in legal research at the courthouse library in Aspen, planning his escape during these outings. On June 7, 1977, Bundy seized an opportunity during a trip to the courthouse library, jumping from an open window and fleeing to freedom. Despite police efforts, Bundy evaded capture, sustaining himself by pilfering food from cabins and camping sites. Realizing the need for a vehicle to evade police barriers effectively, Bundy eventually stole a car, but his luck waned as he was spotted attempting to flee Aspen. Subsequently, he was restricted with handcuffs and leg irons during his research outing. Undeterred, Bundy orchestrated a second escape on December 30, 1977, successfully navigating through the jail's ceiling to freedom. By the time authorities discovered his absence, Bundy had already made his way to Chicago, en route to his ultimate destination, Florida. In mid-January 1978, Bundy, now using the alias Chris Hagen, settled in Tallahassee, Florida, marking the beginning of his transient existence as a fugitive. The brutal attack at the Chi Omega sorority house left a lasting impact on the survivors and the community at large. The sorority sisters had been enjoying their Saturday night out, unaware of the horror awaiting them upon their return. Nina Neary, arriving back at the sorority house, discovered the door wide open and encountered a man fleeing the scene with a makeshift weapon. Alarmed, she sought help from her roommate Nancy and rushed to alert the house mother. Along the way, they encountered another roommate, Karen, who was grievously injured, her head covered in blood. The police were called, and upon their arrival, they discovered the grisly scene. Lisa Levy and Margaret Brown were found dead in their beds, both having suffered brutal beatings. Lisa had been raped and strangled, with evidence of severe bite marks and sexual assault using a hairspray bottle. Margaret had also been strangled, with her skull fractured and brain exposed from the severity of the blows. Remarkably, none of the survivors had any recollection of the events that transpired that night. They had all been asleep when the attackers struck, leaving investigators with little to go on in terms of identifying the perpetrator. The heinous nature of the crime shocked the community and intensified the urgency to apprehend the culprit responsible for such senseless violence. The abduction and murder of Kimberly Leach marked a tragic turn in Ted Bundy's reign of terror. Her disappearance, reported by her distraught parents, sparked a frantic search effort by law enforcement. Sadly, Kimberly's body was discovered 8 weeks later in a state park, her remains offering few clues due to advanced decomposition. Prior to Kimberly's disappearance, Bundy had attempted to lure another young girl into his vehicle by posing as a firefighter. Fortunately, the girl's brother intervened, and the encounter led to the discovery of Bundy's stolen van and the subsequent identification of Bundy himself by the detective's children. Bundy's capture in Pensacola, Florida, was the result of a vigilant officer recognizing the stolen vehicle and initiating a pursuit. Despite Bundy's attempt to evade arrest and even feign being shot, Officer David Lee managed to subdue him and bring him into custody. In the aftermath of Bundy's arrest, forensic evidence began to mount against him in connection with Kimberly Leach's murder. The stolen van yielded fibers matching Bundy's clothing, and forensic tests revealed Kimberly's blood type and Bundy's semen on her underwear. Additionally, shoe impressions found near the location where Kimberly's body was discovered matched Bundy's shoes. With Bundy finally apprehended and a wealth of evidence against him, law enforcement hoped to bring an end to his reign of terror and seek justice for his numerous victims. The trial for the murder of Kimberly Leach commenced in Orlando, Florida, at the Orange County Courthouse on January 7, 1980. This time, Ted Bundy opted not to represent himself, instead entrusting his defense to attorneys Julius Africano and Lynn Thompson. Their strategy was to plead not guilty by reason of insanity, a risky plea but one of the few available options for the defense. Throughout the trial, Bundy displayed increasing agitation, at one point even losing control and shouting at a witness with whom he disagreed. It seemed that his confident facade was beginning to crack as he realized the dire situation he was in. Prosecuting attorney Bob Deckel presented 65 witnesses who either directly or indirectly linked Bundy to Kimberly Leach on the day of her disappearance. One key witness reported seeing a man resembling Bundy leading a distressed young girl, matching Kimberly's description, into a white van near the girl's school. Despite the defense's attempts to discredit this testimony, Deckel persisted and presented compelling evidence, including fiber analysis. The most damning evidence presented was the fiber analysis, which linked Bundy's clothing to the van he allegedly drove on the day of the crime. Fibers consistent with those from Kimberly Leach's clothing were also found in the van and on Bundy's clothing purportedly worn on the day of the abduction and murder. As the trial unfolded, it became increasingly apparent that Bundy's fate was sealed. Despite his attempts to refute the evidence and maintain his innocence, the overwhelming weight of the prosecution's case left little doubt in the minds of the jury. The prosecution's expert witness, during the trial, indicated that Ted Bundy and Kimberly Leach had likely come into contact around the time of her death. 1 month after the trial began, on February 7th, the jury deliberated for less than 7 hours before reaching a guilty verdict. This outcome was celebrated by the prosecution team and their supporters. On February 9th, the sentencing trial began, coinciding with the second anniversary of Kimberly Leach's death. During this phase, Bundy surprised everyone by marrying a defense witness, Carol Ann Boone, under oath. Despite the unusual circumstances, their marriage was legally recognized. Bundy was then sentenced to death for the third time, spending his honeymoon alone on death row in Florida State's Rayford Penitentiary. Despite his multiple convictions and death sentences, Bundy persisted in fighting for his life. He appealed his convictions to the Florida Supreme Court, but his appeals were unsuccessful. Additionally, he confessed to some of the murders, shedding light on his disturbing behavior. Finally, on January 24, 1989, Ted Bundy was executed by electric chair at approximately 7 a.m. His final words, "I'd like you to give my love to my family and friends," left observers puzzled. Outside the prison, hundreds of onlookers and media representatives awaited confirmation of his death. Upon receiving the news, cheers erupted, marking the end of one of the country's most terrifying chapters.